In this episode of Net Lease TV All-Star Event Summer 2025, Chris interviews Anna Pathe, Commonwealth Title, Andrew Gharibian, Chaser Capital, Jesse Limon, Marcus and Millichap, Glen, Kunofsky, Surmount, Bryn, Northmarq, Sturm, Upland Real Estate, Stephanie, Kelsey, Asset Preservation, and I'm your moderator, Chris Marabella. Enjoy. All right, thank you everybody for being here at Net Lease TV All-Star Summer 2025 event. And I wanted to thank you guys for all being in this panel for Net Lease TV. And just wanted to tell you a little bit about a deal that we're closing today. Literally funding this deal today with Andrew Gharibian, Chaser Capital, Anna Pathe, Commonwealth Title. So I want to thank you guys again for that deal. Andrew, what kind of pharmacies are you looking for? And we're going to post the video that we did at ICSC at the very end. You're looking for vacant pharmacies that you can re-tenant with dollar stores? And how many deals do you want to do? Like, what is your volume you're thinking?
Yeah, one of the lines of acquisitions that we're focused on right now is vacant boxes. And we've been especially active in the drugstore space. We've taken advantage of some of the bankruptcies. So we were active in the 99-cent store bankruptcy auction. We purchased one there. We were active in the Rite Aid bankruptcy that took place last year. We purchased two in Ohio in that auction, and there was another bankruptcy auction last week, which we were awarded one of the sites. So yeah, we're looking for everyone wants value add nowadays. It's hard to get value add unless there's a real I feel there's a real vacancy component to it. So that's kind of where we're focused on right now.
Awesome. And we're going to, again, post the video that we did with Andrew at ICSC, going into some detail of the type of pharmacy properties he's seeking. We got him an awesome loan because, Andrew, you would consider him kind of as a developer. So we got him over 100% of cost, which is pretty unique. Most lenders want like skin in the game. They'll want like 10 to 20% in the deal. We got Andrew over 100%. So we were... And then I think, what did we do, Andrew? We did like a 7-year fixed with a 25-year AM, or was it a 10-year fixed?
I think it's a 5-year fixed, but I think what made the loan stand out and what made the loan special is that oftentimes we need to own the asset for over a year to, season the asset. And in this case, we were able to do a cash out refinance, within 9 or 10 months of when we closed. So that was, I think, what made this loan special.
And I think, what was our rate, like 6 5/8, or was it less than that?
6 5/8. That's exactly
6 5/8. It was a smaller loan. It was sub 1 million. Anna Pathe did an amazing job. Commonwealth. I want to thank you again, Anna. For any of the agents, developers, principals, how can someone call you? You're going to be at ICSC, right? In Palm Springs as well.
Yes, I'll be there in Palm Springs later in September, so we're really excited. So I'm with Commonwealth. We're on the national level, so we're able to help our clients in all 50 states, even parts of Mexico, Canada. So it's really a unique brand that we are. So I'm sure my information will hopefully be linked. We have a wonderful team that does multifamily. We do hospitality. So we have a little bit of everyone that has a niche in the market.
And how can somebody call? What's your cell phone if they want to call or text you to dial you into a deal for title and escrow?
Yeah, my phone number is 951-202-9404. I'm sure as Andrew Christian can test, people text me all the time. I'm always available.
I want to thank you guys, both Andrew and Anna, for the help with the deal. It was a great deal. I really enjoyed. And then we're going to do more shortly, right, Andrew? Within the next 6 months, we're going to get another one. So thank you guys. I want to transition to Glen now, Glen Kunofsky, who used to be with Marcus and Millichap, but has now started his own firm, Surmount. And Glen and his team have been actively lobbying. I've been watching it on LinkedIn with the U.S. government. You were in Washington on the bonus depreciation. I know that when we were doing the Safeway deals many, many years ago, when we first got into net lease, that was huge, the bonus depreciation. Back then, Glen, what they used to do, my dad used to do is he would do a CTL loan on a portfolio of Safeway stores. and they would have 100% financing, non-recourse deal. And with the bonus depreciation, you used to be able to offset active salary with passive losses. So I'm curious to hear a little bit about it, and tell us a little bit about the lobbying and how it'll affect net lease. What's the benefit to landlords, developers, agents out there now that this is passed?
Sure. Well, appreciate the time, Chris. Yeah, spent a lot of time around bonus and the big beautiful bill. Not something I was engaged in before in terms of lobbying, but really, this is an extension of the Jobs Act that passed in 2017 that had bonus depreciation from there. So from 17 to 22, it went from 100% bonus depreciation, and it trickled down over time. With the passage of the new bill, came back at 100% and made it permanent. So basically from 18 till 22, and even before the bill passed, there's became a whole new category of net lease in terms of bonus eligible assets. And you're right, it's very similar to what before. I'm old enough to deal with it, and I was in real estate right around 86 is when I got in there. But in 1986, essentially, I was young, but that was sort of where they had the tax reform where, it was everybody in real estate buying. You could use, doctors, lawyers, everybody could offset their active income with passive losses. They reformed that in 86 tax reform. But bonus, which started with the Jobs Act, was sort of a rekindling of that. So, mostly, there's a lot of technical aspects to it, but for real estate owners, it's a whole new asset class. I like to equate it to almost 1031 for your ordinary income or your capital gains. So, we were involved in probably almost $20 billion of transactions that were bonus eligible over the last few years, which basically, for real estate owners and brokers especially, and people who had, active real estate participation or active real estate portfolios, they could take the bonus. Car washes was one of the unique assets, which still is, where the car wash building qualifies for the bonus depreciation. So you have an asset that's, just call it $5 million. You exclude about 15-20% for land, depending on where the property was, and the rest is bonus eligible. So if you're a real estate owner and you have, let's just say, $1 million a year in income that you're paying ordinary income on, and you buy a bonus eligible asset, you can take that depreciation and zero out your federal income tax if you're qualified in the right way. So, families that have multifamily real estate that is fully depreciated, that's making income, people that have portfolios of net lease that, have low basis that they exchanged into, can buy these assets and offset their ordinary income through using the bonus depreciation. So, over the last few years, like I said, it's, 8 billion or so in car wash, but like the bonus market that we've handled over that time is almost 30 billion. And we believe we're scratching the surface. And in years, people are going to talk about this wave very similar to how they talk about 1031, about selling assets. So I feel like we were instrumental in, bringing back bonus at 100%. And we're really excited. We have a good chunk of our investors into bonus eligible assets are also real estate brokers. We have a lot of leading net lease real estate brokers that have both bought bonus eligible assets and have invested in funds that we've set up with a few entities to capitalize on the bonus. If you're a participating real estate professional, it really is a game changer. So we've had a lot of leading net lease brokers invest into these properties and into the funds.
That's really great. I was just going to say, and I don't know if you guys saw this, but I think it was either a TikTok or I think on TikTok, and they had a video of Trump, and it was in 92, and Trump was saying that that was one of the reasons that the real estate market had collapsed in the early 90s, because they did the Tax Reform Act in 1986. Basically, in the before 86, right, your tax rates were really high. So, you could either pay the government or you could buy real estate. So that was a huge motivator to buy real estate. But I'm going to try to find that video and snip it in here if I can find it again.
I'd like to call our next witness, Donald Trump, who certainly needs no introduction. Your fame and reputation precede you, Donald. We're very happy to have you here. We know you to be very frank and outspoken, and you've had extensive experience, not only in large real estate developments, but also in sports and gaming and entertainment industries. And I'm glad you're able to make it here this morning, and appreciate your waiting and being so patient as you have been. So we welcome you, especially to listen and learn from your experiences, as we know you've been very much involved in regard to this credit crunch that we have before our nation today. So you may proceed in any way that's comfortable with you.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Donald, you may proceed.
Thank you very much. Well, first of all, I think I could say to Mr. Seidman, who I believe has done a really fantastic job while he was in government, that had the 1986 catastrophe of the Tax Reform Act not been passed, I'm not sure that you'd know Mr. Seidman in the capacity of RTC. You'd know him in some perhaps more positive capacity, but not in the Resolution Trust. And I think in bringing that point up to Mr. Seidman before, he tended to agree with me, I think. Good. So this tax act was just an absolute catastrophe for the country, for the real estate industry, and I really hope that something can be done, as Congressman Thomas recently said, that something can be done to change at least parts of it, because it has taken all incentive away from investing in real estate, and real estate really means so many jobs. I mean, you have a city called New York City. You have a city, Boston. You have other cities and so many other cities. But I can tell you from very personal knowledge, New York City has virtually no construction right now. And we're not only talking about office buildings, of which there are many. We're talking about housing, moderate income housing, low income housing, even high income housing, where you create jobs. You create so many other things. They buy carpet, they buy furniture, they buy refrigerators, they buy other things that fuel the economy. And incentive has to be put back into the construction of things that are needed, such as housing of all kinds.
Now, let me ask you, if Congress does nothing, doesn't take any course of action whatsoever, how long do you think it would take our country to climb out of the economic crisis that it's in today?
Well, I think if incentives aren't given through taxing and other means, I believe that this country could be in this deep recession / depression for years. For years. I see no sign of any kind of an upturn at all. There's no incentive to do anything. There's no incentive to invest. Everyone's doing badly. Everyone. The wealthiest people are doing badly. The poor people are doing badly. Everybody is doing badly. I mean, you walk around the cities today, very, very few are doing well. And unless the incentive is given back to this country, and it's been taken away with 1986, unless it's given back, I really think you could be. I mean, there's an expression that we're using, survive till 95. I think it's maybe longer than that. It's survive to 95. I think we're being generous. It's really, really bad. And you folks are going to have to do something to fix it and to get people moving.
How did we get here as we are? Has it been the mountain of debt that's been created in the public and private sector?
Well, I think
has it been the generosity, as Mr. Seidman said, of our tax laws and allowing interest rates to be deducted so that it encourages a debt-driven economy?
Well, I think we got here by the fact that at the time certain things were done. I can speak in terms of the real estate business. Certain deals were made predicated on a certain tax policy, and then that tax policy was changed. I mean, I truly believe that you wouldn't have had the savings and loan crisis. I mean, you save minutia compared to the money that you've wasted on bailing out the savings and loans. Now, your insurance companies are in deep trouble, And I think they're going to get much worse because so much of their portfolio is in real estate. And I think you better save the real estate now. I mean, I can tell you, I bought things that were great deals in the middle 80s and even the later 80s. But when that tax law kicked in, really kicked in, all of a sudden those deals, which were good economic deals, were no longer good economic deals because they changed the game on me and they changed the game on everybody else. And it's pretty unfair. You make a deal predicated on a certain tax law, and then they change the rules. So a lot of the problems that you've experienced are because of the fact that some very foolish people, in order to save a small amount of money, because they heard the word tax shelter and they thought the word tax shelter was a bad thing, as opposed to saying it's an investment in real estate. I mean, an investment in low-income housing, they call a tax shelter. And the word tax shelter is like the word junk bond. It's a very bad-sounding word, even though it isn't necessarily a bad thing. So they heard the word tax shelter, and politically they didn't like that word, and they said, let's get rid of tax shelters. But when they got rid of tax shelters, they got rid of people investing in low and moderate income housing and lots of other good things. And I think you're going to have to go back. They could have corrected 1982, the law, 1982. They could have corrected it, gotten rid of the abuse, and had a great situation today. You wouldn't have had the savings and loan problems. I don't think you would have had many of the banking problems. You wouldn't have had what is going to befall you now, I think. They were just stronger to start off with, but I think the insurance companies are going to be in very deep trouble because of the values of their real estate have been eroded because of what Congress has done. So you have some very deep problems that can be corrected fairly simply by putting the incentives back.
Well, one of the things also that helped create a lot of Trump's wealth, it wasn't bonus, but he had a huge carry forward loss when he bankrupted the Taj Mahal Trump casino. He had about $2 billion in carry forward losses where he lost the casino, but kept those losses on his book. So all his other real estate gains for a long period of time were tax free because of that loss. It's the same basic concept, like if you invest and actually lose money, but when you do it with leverage, it is actually very similar to those carry forward losses that he had there. But it's very interesting when you talk about the sort of business theory of why people take a chance on real estate, and depreciation being a key component that is unique to commercial real estate. So like the idea of like bringing bonus forward, should also be a good tailwind for all of us in that in that you can take this income and have the shelter to do it. So I think it's going to be one of the things that boosts the industry back from where we were a few years ago.
Do any of you guys have questions for Glen?
Glen, I just wanted to say thanks for your work here. This is it says a lot when you see our industry professionals invest in this type of product, and we're seeing it, right? And we saw it before, and it's going to be exciting for not only them, but when the real estate professionals are investing into it, our clients need to do it too. So it just shows how good of a program it is, and thanks for your efforts on this. One question to you: How are you guys getting other real estate professionals? Do you have a fund going on, or what is your approach?
So several different ways, and it's actually very new. But after the Jobs Act in 2018 through 22, we participated with sort of a group of our clients in managing a fund structure where brokers of all level and investors of all level in different businesses that could invest instead of individual assets. We did about $150 million fund each year, which raised about 40 million in equity, give or take about 40%. That's where a lot of brokers in the net lease space that, you find most people that get into brokerage, also are investing in real estate and are active in owning, whether that's a lot of the net lease professionals have, a lot of partnerships and are vested into different operating companies. So are considered for tax purposes participating real estate professionals, which actually gives you the qualification to make your commissions, sheltered by depreciation. So if you own other real estate and you file your taxes as a participating, so explaining this to a lot of the brokers that were dealing with our team of like, hey, like they were bringing investors and we're like, so we did come up with a format, and in the net lease industry, expectedly, like I'm not at liberty to give out any of the names, but the top names and the biggest brokers are some of the LPs in that fund, along with a lot of big developers, a lot of big multifamily owners, and a lot of big operating company executives that didn't want to own and buy their own bonus eligible assets, but participated in. And we are actually actively working with that accounting firm again in this partnership to release one for 2025. It was just up in the air whether it was going to make it through or didn't, and it just takes time to acquire those assets. But we will be probably back involved with that group again and doing a 2025 offering.
And Glenn, what properties, other than you said car washes, what properties will be in the fund, and what does qualify at this point?
So car washes are a little bit unique in that you can take the whole building as part of it. A lot of other assets have a lot of parts of them, like gas and convenience stores, of a certain size qualify if 50% of the sales come from gasoline. So gas and C-store, there is some technicalities to that in there in which ones you can take. You need reporting because you have to document that 50% come from gasoline sales. But as part of the big beautiful bill, manufacturing assets that are critical to supply chain now also qualify. But there's some strict rules around that of new in service for this year, and they had to be started this year. So in the next few years, those assets will become very big asset qualifiers, but it's just hard because they had to be started this year and they have to be first in service. So a big push will be on some of these new ones will be key manufacturing assets related to drug manufacturing and some other medical type things, as well as like bringing jobs back in the automotive industry. But like it's hard because most of those projects were already started that will be bonus eligible, but the fund will capitalize on several different types of assets that have either ability to cost segregate and move forward all that depreciation. But car wash will be a focus, but the fund basically will buy the bonus eligible assets and over time diversify those through 1031 and have like a REIT-like portfolio that pays the investors a dividend of a mixed, very similar to the publicly traded net lease REITs of having different industries, different tenants, different states to have a diversified base because it's evergreen capital. The investors don't want that money back because if you give the money back, you have big recapture. So this is like an evergreen fund where people are putting in the money long term to just get the tax savings and get a nice stable dividend.
So Glenn, do you see any and everybody here, Bryn and Keith, Jesse, Andrew, are you seeing any? Is this opening the door to do credit tenant lease again, or does anybody know a really good CPA for landlords out there that want to get advice on using this bonus depreciation? Is there anybody that you can recommend CPA?
We have several. According to the firm that we partnered with, is Pollock and Brandt out of Miami. But we've worked with so many different accounting firms to educate clients on this whole, because it is really a whole new category. If anyone out there, we can either do a call with our CPAs and your CPA and explain what qualifies, who qualifies, what the benefits were. There's a whole other category too of blown 1031 where you know, we, over the years now, we've come into where you can use bonus eligible assets to shelter capital gains, you know, post blowing a 1031. So that's been another asset category where investors missed the 1031, whether it was something, their ID deadline, or something happened where they couldn't acquire their upleg and they have a big capital gains problem. You can buy bonus eligible assets that also shelter capital gains.
Okay.
Christian,
Well,
I think one of the most fascinating things
ahead,
right
Bryn.
now is that in real time, as we speak, the investment community, high net worth individuals across America are learning exactly what what Glen is covering. This is an evolution. I think it's setting up for a really robust fourth quarter because there's a great many tax professionals across the United States who don't fully appreciate exactly what Glen was naming. And coming off of the troughs of a net lease market that's been depressed now for 36 months, it's seen in the retail segment inventory go from 15 billion to 28 billion in the month of June. This is going to be a big stimulus. We're bringing to market a $25 million reservoir in New Jersey that was on the shelf for investors. It's a CTL fully amortizing structure, and it's given them a new opportunity for liquidity. So I love what Glen said. I'll echo all the sentiments, Glen. Loved seeing your advocacy out there. And I think this has the chance to be the next evolution of tax law that really provides a solid foundation for the net lease segment.
Bryn,
I really appreciate that.
what is the use of that property again? What is the use of it? And you are doing a CTL structure?
Yeah, so it's called Merrill Creek Reservoir in New Jersey, fully amortizing loan with about 10 years of remaining lease term. And it's actually purpose-built for a consortium of energy companies that needed water cooling rights for nuclear and coal-powered plants on the Delaware River on the East Coast.
That sounds very interesting. That's awesome. So, do you think the depreciation is going to open up the door to do this deal? Before this, did it make sense economically, or would this new beautiful bill that Glen helped to pass, does that kind of open up the door to do this deal?
Well, what's fascinating about that, and it's going to depend on where the pricing ultimately strikes, but the delta between the pre-tax IRR and the after-tax IRR on this, we project is about 20%. So 2,000 basis points. So incredibly big difference. It didn't make economic sense, at least at the equity over the loan balance that it's likely to trade now. Before the value and the shift of the equity probably on the magnitude of $4 to $5 million. Now this isn't like the garden variety assets Glen referenced earlier, car wash, fuel, and other elements, but this asset absolutely will benefit.
Okay, awesome. Thank you, Brent, for your insight into that. That's kind of what I was thinking, is maybe you could start to do these CTL deals again with this new bonus depreciation.
CTL will still struggle because the coupon's still very high relative to where cap rates are. The loan constant still isn't quite there. You know that well, Christian, but this, particularly for tax advantaged and depreciable and bonus depreciable assets, it will move the needle. There is no question about it.
Yeah, right now, probably if you did a self-liquidating deal, 25 at like 6, your loan constant's probably like 7 to 8. So you'd have to structure a 7 to 8 cap rate, self-liquidating over a 25-year lease, which that's pretty tough to find, I would imagine, on an investment grade triple B minus guarantee. Let's transition. Jesse Limon. We haven't heard from my friend Jesse. Jesse and I are in the process of kind of like co-broking a $10 million asset with a client that we worked with. We refinanced her Starbucks ATT property about 2 months ago, and now they're in the process of possibly selling this center in LA for 10 million. Jesse, what do you think if one thing Trump brought up and the Republicans is if they were to waive capital gains on owner occupied houses, Do you think that's going to increase, like the baby boomers? What they were saying is that a lot of baby boomers, specifically here in California, have a lot of equity tied up in their houses. That would allow them there would be more supply of houses that come on the market, and maybe some of those baby boomers would downscale and then maybe roll that into net lease to live off the income, and then maybe downscale into a lower priced home is kind of the thought process.
For sure. I mean, I think anytime you see people taking capital like from a couple $1 million property that was throwing off cash flows like as a rental, I mean, they're going to be looking for an opportunity to get into something with a longer term lease with, no landlord responsibilities, especially if they're going into that retirement arc. So I can see that inflow of capital would be great for the net lease space, the $1 to $5 million strike zone. I would absolutely expect that to be the case. I mean, I've sold plenty of dollar stores and, other smaller QSR type deals to people from, California, where they're exiting a couple $1 million property like that. And that's what they go into. So that could really help. It would help clear a lot of the inventory that's out there.
Yeah. Does anybody, Glen or anyone, have any insight into the probability of that passing and when? I think it's the gal Green, she's blonde haired lady. I think she's the one introducing the bill. But the question is, when would it come up for a vote with Congress? That's the bigger question. Does anybody know? No?
I can check in with our lobbyists. Like I said, I wasn't very political before, but I felt very passionate about the bonus. So we engaged a large tax lobbying firm. They're very tied into all that. I don't know specifically the status of that bill, but it is interesting in terms of, someone's home is where they have in America is where so much equity is built up, and the ability to use that equity and do what you're saying, Chris, downsize and take the money and invest it and create income out of built up equity without the capital gain is interesting. It actually is sort of the opposite strategy of what we've been working on for probably 30 years in a strategy to unlock that equity. There's actually a tax opinion written on 1031 related to second homes and vacation homes and primary residence. So a lot of the strategy that would stop this strategy, like what a lot of people have done, is turn their home into a rental property for 2 years, treat it as a rental property, then they're allowed to 1031 it because it's held for investment or business use to avoid that capital gain. And a lot of that capital was sort of the small end of the net lease market of people buying what Jesse was saying, the $1 to $3 million net lease assets and then refinancing those and pulling the money out that way. So it could have a negative effect of some of that strategy, but I'm always a big believer in giving people liquidity is going to throw back into all investment platforms, right? Whether that's net lease, commercial real estate, equities, freeing up capital that's sort of tied up in low basis could be a really good thing.
I think, it's Trump and this Green, they're trying to kill two birds with one stone. One, either they get the federal funds rate down. That's why he's putting pressure on Powell. I guess they said he's trying to do a lawsuit with Powell over this building that came over budget to get Powell to drop the federal funds rate. That was in the Wall Street Journal today. But if he can't get that done, they're really trying to create more supply for the millennials so that the house prices come down. And by doing this, getting rid of the capital gains, that would solve that problem. And then all this equity, all the baby boomers, they're getting older and they're going to need income. That would solve that problem. So it would solve the millennial problem with millennials be able to get houses because there'll be much more supply of houses. As soon as that happens, everybody's going to head for the door and list their house that has equity. So I think that's Trump's strategy, and the Republicans is either do that or get that federal funds rate down, or kind of both. So let's transition now. Let's talk about some of the deals that you guys are listing. Let's start with Bryn. Bryn, what are you listing these days? What do you got out there for 1031 buyers?
Yeah, we're seeing some interesting dynamics in the market right now. Certainly, we came out with the reservoirs. We're seeing, to Andrew's point, a lot of pharmacies. We've seen the Walgreens market spike to about 490 properties on market. The Sycamore acquisition of Walgreens is going to close likely in the next 30 to 60 days. That's going to drive another wave of inventory. So we're seeing the cyclical changeover in Walgreens and CVS to a lesser extent. One of the most fascinating things we're seeing in the landscape right now is the structural change of the middle market banking space, $1 billion to about $5 billion banks, making this decade-long reversal of a dynamic to actually not own their real estate, but rather use that capital to shore up their risk-adjusted capital ratios and just be a little more strategic. So we're bringing out about 120 million of long-term bank sale leasebacks with 15 to 20-year WALTs with reasonably solid credit banks. So for us, we're seeing a lot of the inventory be driven by structural changes within the economic and retail landscape. That's one of the core themes that we're noticing.
Thank you, Bryn. That's awesome. Keith Sturm, what are you listing with Deb? If anybody knows Deb and Keith, they've been around a long time. We've did a lot of deals with Keith from like 98 to 2007. And I think coming out of the credit crunch, we did some deals. I'd like to do more deals, Keith. But what are you up to? What are you listing?
Well, I want to go back to what Jesse and Glen were saying. We right now have a 1031 buyer from San Francisco that put their house into a rental pool, rented their house for a year and a half, sold the house, and now we're 1031 exchanging into a daycare property in Minnesota. So as California goes, so does the Midwest net lease real estate market. So that was an interesting discussion. We're seeing a lot of daycares out there right now. Daycare seems to be the very hot trend. We're seeing a lot of them for sale. Along with the Walgreens product, we had an investor looking for a Walgreens property in the Midwest, and they wanted to be less than $7 million, and they wanted to be, somewhere with a longer term lease and somewhere above a 7 cap. And we had just in the Minnesota, Wisconsin, and South Dakota market, we had over 28 Walgreens on the market that fit that criteria. One thing to note about the Walgreens stores is we threw out, before we came to the 28 properties, we threw out every Walgreens that has 51-year options in their option period. So we're all talking about Walgreens and what's going to happen, and that's probably a whole nother webinar here, Chris. Yeah. But reality is, when you have 51-year renewal options, how does a investor buy that and have any certainty of what's going to happen on the market? Andrew, you're looking at that saying, hey, maybe that's an opportunity for you, because those are the Walgreens we're seeing out there at 10 plus cap rates, and anything that doesn't have that, we're seeing in our market anyways, less than 8 caps. So very interesting on that regard. And we're still seeing QSRs out there, and a lot of Chipotle's on the QSR market, and those are still selling at reasonably lower cap rates. There you go. Starbucks also, lots of Starbucks. So
we love coffee. I'm on a Starbucks roll. I'm doing a Starbucks in your area in Minnesota. Nice. We love coffee.
Nice.
What I was going to say is, I remember we did a KinderCare with you many years ago. So you've been doing a lot of those daycare for years. Go ahead.
Drop a comment here. I think no, it's really interesting timing, because as Keith said, the childcare space is popular with respect to like 1031 buyers. We're kind of in this pivot point from an investor perspective, because drugstores are so, I would say, they're not safe and secure, whereas they used to be considered safe and secure. I mean, whether CVS is safe and secure, I think we'll find out. mean, I think they're pretty well diversified the way that they, they're structured. But I mean, obviously Walgreens is, I've been saying it for years that to an extent, a ticking time bomb, the way they structured these leases from, not only having rents, that could be $100,000 above market annually, paying anywhere from 250 to 350, $250 to $350,000 a year for a site that's worth 100,000 ish less. So again, the cap rates are unwinding dramatically as they're considered to be unstable. We're also seeing less. I haven't seen talk to a buyer in months that said, "Hey, I want to buy a Walgreens." So when Keith said that, I was like, "What is going on?"
Right.
So I'm really curious if that's going to continue happening. I mean, I've had a guy say, "Find me drugstore sites that I can redevelop." And the interesting thing about Walgreens, especially, is they're not super friendly to a redevelopment play. They really aren't. I mean, unless you're talking about like Family Dollar backfill or a dollar store backfill. But it's really interesting to see this, kind of the market shift and pivot from, drugstores and where they're headed and what they're buying now. Like Chipotle is red hot. You've got Starbucks, who I think is relatively still very popular with investors. And again, the childcare, early education assets, Tractor Supply is red hot. I mean, it's so to me, one of the things that I've been really interested in is like pilot travel centers. I think that they're just that type of asset to me is for the foreseeable future. It's going to be a very strong type of property. I mean, they're right off the interstate. Truckers and people sleep there. They take a shower there. I mean, it's like the most basic necessity for somebody who's on the road. And so I just think it's interesting to see the investment world gravitate away from these pure retail plays that couldn't figure out the medical, like the Walgreens. They couldn't figure out the medical piece. And so anyways, I just think it's such an interesting time to be involved in the space. It caught me off guard. I've been calling drugstores Walgreens specifically for 15 years, outbound every day for years and years. And so I pivoted to kind of more of these necessity based tenants that Warren Buffett backs. If I could find like good railroad type stuff to call, I'd be calling on that. I mean, it's just such an interesting time. Anyways, so that's kind of my 2 cents there.
I just wanted to mention one thing. So Jesse and I co-broked 2 Walgreens that I financed like in early, I think it was like 13 and 15. And those clients were smart. They got out at a pretty good cap rate. That was like 1 or 2 years ago at like 6 5/8. I think we sold those 12 or 13 million. But then recently, Jesse and I,
but if you remember, cap rates were unwinding dramatically from when we listed it to when we sold. There was still it was a dramatic unwind, but even if you look back now from when it's just been, I mean, hundreds of basis points, a few hundred basis points.
So Jesse and I and Anna is off right now, but we just met with a client that's trying to do we helped them to try to get a lease extension on 6 or 7 Walgreens. And that gentleman is selling his Walgreens. Glenn, what do you, or Stephanie, let's go to Stephanie. I didn't even realize, Stephanie, are you there? Maybe unmute yourself.
Yeah, hi.
Now, Stephanie, are you with Bull Realty? Who are you with?
I'm with Asset Preservation.
Oh, okay.
So I'm a qualified intermediary.
Okay, yes, that's right. Yeah, Dino
Champagne.
So what's going on with 1031s these days? What's up? Has anything changed with the beautiful bill?
Well, luckily, 1031 exchanges are safe. They're not on the table, which is always a good thing because every administration, they always come up as something that they're going to be discussed. The nice thing, though, with the bonus depreciation and the 1031 exchanges is you can, use that 100% bonus depreciation at the beginning when you purchase the property. Then you can defer all your taxes when you're doing your 1031 exchange in the future. Another thing I wanted to touch on when you guys were speaking about the residential earlier, yes, you can turn your residential into a rental. And if you've lived in it for 2 of the past 5 years, you can also use tax code 121 to pull that 250,000 or 500,000 out when you sell it. So that's another kind of bonus for those boomers who are thinking about downsizing, but don't want to deal with all the capital gains taxes that they've accrued over the years while they've been holding on to their property.
Yeah, I like the idea. Like Glenn said, if it doesn't pass, then you got to move out of your house though, and then rent it. You're saying 2 out of 5 before it's redefined.
If you've lived in it for 2 of the past 5 years, you can also use tax code 121, which is
maybe what boomers can do. You can move out of your house, rent it, and then go into the apartment if you think that the market's going to come down. And then if the housing market, I guess you're going to lose though, because if you think your house is going to go down, but then eventually in the 2 years, you can roll into a Starbucks or a 7-Eleven or whatever it may be. That's where this, if they pass this other one, bang, you can get out instantly. I think the first people out are going to be the best. I think if you wait, if this thing passes, you're going to lose money in your house because everything's going to go on the market at the same time if it passes. Stephanie, how can somebody contact you if they need to speak with you, have questions about the 1031 process or their specific situation?
Yeah, so easiest is my cell phone. If you used to work with Dino before, I have the same number.
Okay.
That number is
Maybe let us know what that is. What number is that?
310-508-7367. And then my email is Stephanie, STEPHANIE at API Exchange. So like Asset Preservation Inc. Exchange.com.
Awesome.
And I think I worked with you on a couple deals back when I used to be a sourcing broker for Exchange Right. So I remember looking at some of your properties you had at the time.
Who's that? With
Glen?
who? With
I
Glen.
used to be a sourcing broker for Exchange Rights DST portfolios.
Yeah, we did a lot with Exchange Right. We sold them a lot of stuff. I mean, the whole DST market is still interesting. It's also still booming. The amount of new institutional equity going into it, and you know, the 1031 market continues to evolve. I remember distinctly. Yeah.
Before we move on, I want to do a quick disclosure. If you're an investor, developer, agent, you always want to go to a CPA, qualified professional to get tax advice. We're kind of speaking in generalities. I think everybody agrees with that. You always want to talk to your tax attorney, someone like Stephanie and an accommodator to verify anything that we're kind of talking about. Real quick, financing. The 10-year treasury, I just looked it up, 429, it ticked up. There was a little more inflation, they said today, and the 10-year treasury kind of sold off on that. We're still like 580 to 6 3/8 for loans that are like 3 million and above. If you drop below that, like the loan we did with Andrew, then the rate's going to be slightly higher. But rates are coming down. Generally, I think, and the liquidity is kind of going up. One thing that Trump was trying to do is lower the reserve requirement, which would be, really push money out there. We've been doing the quantitative tightening. If they start to buy the bonds again, that would artificially lower the rates. Kind of like when we were coming out of the credit crunch in 2009, they started doing the quantitative easing where the Fed started buying bonds. So we'll see if that happens. Are you guys going to be at ICSC? I know Anna in Palm Springs. Anna said she's going to be there. Are you guys going to come out to Palm Springs? That is in September. Are you guys coming out for that?
We have a team out there. We have a team also. There's the Orlando ICSE coming up. Our 140 brokers, we're at all these events. These are all key industry things.
Orlando, maybe I'll come out to California.
Okay,
We're,
awesome.
we're booking up Orlando right now, so.
Okay, cool. And Jesse, how can someone call you if they want a list or have any questions? We're just gonna kind of go around now.
My cell phone is 574-607-2341. Direct office line 212-430-5291.
Keith Sturm, how can someone call you on your cell phone?
Keith Sturm, Upland Real Estate Group, 612-376-4488. And it's keith@upland.com.
Glenn, Mr. Glenn, how can
We
someone?
are
Do you
here.
want anybody calling you on your cell phone?
I'm accessible to anybody that needs help,
All right.
but I'm the
I know you
CEO
have
of
your
the company.
entourage.
The better way to get a hold of us is surmount.com. Feel free
Okay.
to email me, gkunofsky@surmount.com, and we'll put you in touch with a professional in our organization that specializes in whatever you need help with. So that's the best way to get a hold of us, whether that's questions on bonus or investing in various types of net lease. We're here to help.
Thanks, Glenn, again for all your insight into the bonus depreciation. It's awesome to have someone lobbying for us. Bryn, how can somebody reach you out there on your cell? Are you going to be out at ICSC in Palm Springs getting a tan?
I will be in Palm Springs, Orlando, New York at the end of the year. Those conferences are a big part of our annual slate, and anyone who wants me can get to reach me, can get a hold of me on LinkedIn, BJ Fowler, my initials. Send a direct message. Always happy to respond to folks.
Bryn, we'll have to meet up for a drink out there, buddy.
Would love that.
All right. Stephanie, are you going to be at ICSC, and what's your cell phone?
I am not going to be at ICSC this year. I've got a Reimagine event in September, and then a crew event, and then another Real Wealth Network event. So I'm kind of like, wasn't able to squeeze that in this time. Again, my cell phone though is 310-508-7367.
Awesome. Thank you, Stephanie. Andrew, did you figure out your mic?
I think so.
There he is. I want to thank Andrew again for the deal. Andrew and I are going to be doing a lot of these deals together, and Andrew's out of Beverly Hills, so we're going to do dinner at El Pastel with Giacomino, right, Andrew?
That sounds good.
How can these agents that are selling the pharmacies call you to start to tee up vacant pharmacies so that I can finance those dollar stores?
The dollar stores are one part of it, one part of the redevelopment plan. There's a bunch of other users we're working with, but you can call me anytime on my cell phone, 24 hours a day, 310-927-3398. We're never had a financing contingency on any of our acquisitions. There's no investment committees. We can often make decisions in 10, 15 minutes. We respond to LOIs in a couple hours. So we're looking for more deals, and we hope we can get more done to close out the year.
Awesome. Thanks again, Andrew. Today's a great day. We're kind of celebrating that we just signed the settlement. So it's always a good day when money's coming in.
Congrats.
So what's that?
Congrats.
Oh, thank you guys.
Nice
yeah,
job.
they're supposed to be, hopefully they're wiring the money as we speak. Hi, Andrew.
I hope so.
So if you're watching this, we want to see your feedback, comment. We want to see your comments. Comment to Glen, me on the finance, everybody that's spoke today. Hit that subscribe button. We want subscribers. We need more subscribers. Like it. That's going to help the algorithm. And if you need to call me for acquisition, refi, cash out, takeout, construction financing. Right now, again, I'm doing I love Starbucks. We love the Dutch Bros. 7-Elevens with the gas. We love the gas. Like Jesse was saying, those pilots could be really interesting. Chipotle, Chick-fil-A, anything that's BBB minus or better investment grade credit with a minimum lease of like 7 years. Give me a call. Chris Marabella Commercial Finance, 760-803-6464. 760-803-6464. Thank you guys for being on Net Lease TV. You guys are all stars, and thank you so much.
Thank you, Chris.
Thanks,
Thank you,
guys.
Chris.